There you have it, everybody. Mo said the Raiders are winning the Super Bowl. He said it right there. No, he said they should want to win the Super Bowl. So don't hold them to that, but we'll get more into how this team is getting geared up. Now we add in our special guest. We're glad to bring along with us Jesse Merrick, who is no stranger to this show. Jesse, thanks for joining us here on Silver and Black today.
For sure, guys. I can't believe we're already talking training camp. It's pretty incredible that it's already almost here, especially when you think about everything that's transpired from the end of the season till now. It's setting up for a pretty exciting year.
It is. There's so much going on. By the way, for those of you watching the video on YouTube, Jesse's got a Raiders painting behind him. There it is. So before you get crazy and say, well, that looks like a kid did it, Jesse, explain to us what that painting is, how it was made.
Yeah, so here, I'll slide out of the way so you guys can see it a little more. But essentially, one of our photographers, he painted this one, Jeff Burris. He actually painted it with a ketchup bottle. It's supposed to be a little more abstract. And he said, he's like, hey, man, you want it? And I was like, heck yeah, man. Like, throw it up there, represent Raider Nation in the office. Obviously, I got a lot of the Vegas sports stuff in my office here. So I wanted to show Jeff some love with his painting. It gets a lot of pub. A lot of times when I'm doing Zooms and stuff, it always catches people's eye because it is, a little more on the unique side. So I love having it back there.
Yes, I love being in the inter sanctum over at News 3 with Jesse. He's got his lights, which is the USL soccer team. He's got his aces. So he's got the Mark Davis ownership group represented up there well. We see the Foleys off to the – you got the whole Vegas thing going, which is you got it all. And of course, we're going to talk about Raiders. I'm in a hotel room here in Vegas, actually, not in my usual studio, which is why I have this weird painting, which – I don't know. I think that
is that as cool as yours, Jesse? But
yeah, who painted that one, Scott?
I don't know. You have to ask Caesars Entertainment Group, whoever they buy their stuff from. But Jesse, let's dive in because you are a guy in the building every day. You cover this team really, really well. I want to start first with kind of the tumultuous offseason. You talked about a little bit with all the changes, most of them great, right? But at the same time, they had some issues with defections, the lawsuits, the Dan Ventrell issue. They bring in somebody I'm really excited about because of her Las Vegas roots. That's Sandra Douglas Morgan. For people outside of Las Vegas, because Raider Nation is international, for people outside Las Vegas, though, share with us kind of the mood around her taking over and what it means to have a native Las Vegas. Yes, she moved there when she's 2, but that counts. For her to be in charge in the market where the team is continuing to build its base locally.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement around this hire, which, probably isn't something you can say a lot, in terms of a team hiring a president. For this one, the fact, again, like you noted, moved here when she was 2, but for all intents and purposes, she's Vegas born through and through. And really, I think when you look at it, I believe, and I'm going to butcher this title because I have a million times already because I stick to sports. I don't work in a lot of the gaming things and stuff, but she was the head of the gaming control board or something to that effect out here. For multiple years, has worked in many different roles throughout the gaming industry, has contacts up the wazoo. I mean, whoever it is that she's trying to contact is going to pick up the phone. And I think that's massive. And again, just having those ties to Vegas is even bigger as, the Raiders continue to kind of ingrain themselves in this market here in Las Vegas and really continue to grow here. I think it was a great hire. She was up there, funny, obviously very intelligent, very well-spoken, really commanded the room. And, we always say this with coaches, they won the press conference or they didn't. I think she knocked this one out of the park, did a great job in this one, was fielding every single question, with ease, and said she's not running or hiding from any of the things that have happened there before. She's coming in ready to take on those things, head on, and said she plans to meet with every employee in that building to talk with them, to try and see how she can improve this organization, from the inside out.
Yeah, and that's so important. Go ahead, Mo.
I like what you said about her meeting those challenges head on, and I noted that in the previous episode that she wasn't afraid to address what had been going on in the front office. So now that the Raiders have their president in place, could we expect more hires coming in behind her? Because as you know, there was a lot of turnover in the front office over the past year.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. Anytime there's someone new that comes in, I think, anything can happen. New faces can come in at any level, no matter where that is, So I think as she really kind of sinks her teeth into it, and she noted in her introductory press conference, I haven't had a chance to really dive in and do all that stuff yet. So as she starts that process, I can almost guarantee there's going to be some hires that do come in, where she starts to really realize, like, okay, this is where I need help. Because one thing Mark Davis has always said, for him is he knows he doesn't know how to do everything. So he delegates. And I think that's something that she's also going to come in and do and say, okay, hey, look, these are some of the problems or the things I want to fix. These are the people that I need to help me do that. And I'd imagine those are the people that she'll bring in, again, to kind of try and help it and move that part of the organization forward.
No doubt about it. And Jesse, the thing Mo and I have talked a lot about on the show here is, and we're not there every day, right? So, but we sense the difference in the organization with Dave Ziegler, with Josh McDaniels, and the way they go about business. To me, it's very palpable from the outside. And of course, the reports we get from you guys on the field every day, out there at practice, in the building, has been that. Talk to us a little bit about how you perceive the kind of vibe around the building and how business is being different or done differently under the current regime.
Yeah, I mean, you notice it right away when you go out to practice because they're a million miles away. It's much like the Patriots. You need some binoculars to be able to see, what you're looking at practice. But all kidding aside, honestly, it's a much more, I don't want to say business-like, because the guys are still out there having fun, and Josh has made a point, to say, look, he wants his guys to be able to do their thing, to do the thing that's gotten them to this point in the NFL. But it is also the thing that I keep kind of hearing over and over and over again throughout a lot of the guys, anytime they do any media availabilities with us, or anytime they're on any other podcasts and things like that, is they all talk about the detail with this coaching staff and this new regime as a whole, including Dave Ziegler. Not to say that Gruden and Bisaccia and those guys didn't have the detail, but certain coaches obviously concentrate on different things. And that's the thing that sticks out to me, is just the vast amount of detail that comes in with this Josh McDaniels staff. I was recently listening to Foster Moreau talk about it, on a podcast recently, and he was saying, instead of each of them kind of breaking off into their own groups, on offense at least, they're all meeting together. So they're all learning this scheme as a whole and learning what the running backs do, what the offensive linemen do, what the receivers are doing. So it's like kind of a wholesale learning process for everyone involved, so that they can say, hey, look, I know what X guy, whatever guy is doing on this play and what his aim is, and that can help me, create a better opening for him or whatever it is in any situation. I think that's a really unique way to go about it, because so many times you see them breaking off into these groups more often than not, and it is kind of the secular, the way he described it, I think, was as mercenaries a bit. Well, now it's all one whole collective thing, and I think that's going to be very beneficial for the team, because again, when you're learning a new scheme, there's so much that goes into it, but having a command of the entire thing, if you know what the receivers are doing, if you're a tight end, if you know what the offensive linemen are doing, if you're a receiver, that's just going to help your understanding of the offense as a whole and can kind of help push things forward faster.
So, Jesse, with training camp kicking off, I want to get your quick opinion. What position group are you most forward looking to seeing on the field? Because I know I want to see how the secondary shakes out, because there's questions there. Scott may want to talk about the offensive line, which we're going to talk about today, but I just wanted your opinion of what's intriguing to you going into training camp.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm a bit biased because I'm a former receiver, so I always, anytime I go out there, that's the first thing I'm watching. And obviously, with all the tools that are in that receiving core now and bringing in Devontae Adams, so I'm definitely going to be watching that. But in terms of like question marks and things that are, intriguing going forward, storylines with this team, I'm really watching this offensive line, because there are so many different, pieces throughout this and question marks along there of how things are going to shape up. And look, when you think about the simple fact of how many weapons this offense has, it's great on paper, but it's not going to be able to go to the same effect that it could if the offensive line isn't solid, isn't what we've seen this Raiders team have consistently over the years. The last couple of years, their offensive line play has dipped down, so they need to solidify that part of it in order for this offense really to reach, its peak.
Yeah, and Jesse, you talk about the offensive line, and I'll stay kind of in that realm just because you have a new coaching staff. You have all new coaches throughout, including at the positions. So you have the offensive line, which you got to shake out with the players and who's going to start, who's going to play right tackle, which we know Alex Leatherwood's going to get the shot there. But who's going to fill in those other spots? What about the change in grasping Josh McDaniels' scheme? What about that? How much time? The schedule gets busy and tough from the beginning. They're not going to have a lot of time, so they have to get that pretty quickly. How much of a challenge do you think that will be for this team?
Yeah, I'd imagine pretty challenging because, you look at this offensive line as a whole, aside from Colton Miller, it's a lot of young guys. Denzel Good as well, not necessarily a young guy by any means, but, a young group that kind of sort of, I think, just had the previous, offense really figured out. And now you go and throw that in there. And then also the fact that the offensive line is a developmental position. So not only are you working on your craft, trying to better that, but you're also trying to really grasp and get a handle on this offense. Now, having said that, this offense, I don't think is going to be as complicated as the previous one under John Gruden. I think things will be simplified a bit more. And I think Josh McDaniels is doing it kind of, a lot of coaches will hear them talk about installing it in pods. And that's basically, you know, from my understanding, what they're going to be doing throughout camp and everything like that. And as the year goes on, I think, you know, given the fact that the question marks that we have, and I'm sure they do about this offensive line, you know, they're not going to do anything that they're not comfortable with. And I think, again, that's where it's going to be. You know, the offensive line is going to be the motor for the rest of this offense, and will define where it goes. So I think their comfortability with this scheme, what they're being asked to do, is we're going to kind of really see, you know, how much the handcuffs come off of this offense, you know, and at what point of the season that really does happen.
A lot of talk about the offense. A lot of people are excited about the offense. You mentioned Devontae Adams coming in, Hunter Renfrow, and Darren Waller another year with Derek Carr. But you're around the team. How is the team taken to their new defensive coordinator? I know Gus Bradley last year brought in a lot of his guys. So do you get a feel that the guys are excited about the new scheme? Like, what is the vibe there on the defensive side of the ball?
I do, yeah. I think they're very excited about it. You know, the thing that always comes up, you know, when they talk about Patrick Graham is just the fire that the guy has. And a lot of them say, you know, he's like an interesting dude. I've heard that they referred him to that multiple times, many different players, which I think is great because, you know, he just brings a different attitude, you know, to this group. Gus Bradley was a really cool dude, seemed very chill, you know, and had his own quirks here and there and things that he said and did. But Patrick Graham, you know, it just seems like this guy, you know, for lack of a better word, is just a football nerd and is going to be, you know, bearing down and really going to make this scheme interesting for these guys. You know, the thing that he keeps saying so many times is multiple. That's what we keep hearing about this defense. And I really think that's going to be the case. No longer is it going to be, hey, we run this cover 3, you know, that's just our thing. We're going to do it every single week, no matter who we're playing. I think we're going to see a much more game-specific game plan going into each of these weeks. And so things are going to be changing week to week, which I think will be more interesting, one, for the fans, but also, two, for the players, too. You know, there's obviously going to be things that stay the same and rules and stuff like that. But, you know, overall, I think we're going to see this scheme change a lot. And it is going to be really heavy, you know, defensively involving the defensive backs, you know, which is, one, mirrors the rest of the NFL, obviously, you know, the way that things are going. But also specifically, that's something that Patrick Graham has talked about ad nauseum, about the fact that, like, look, hey, we need 6 solid DBs in order to be successful. And I'm honestly just more curious to see, you know, how he employs those guys, but also, you know, how he's going to put these guys in the best position to succeed and what he sees as their strengths. You know, anytime a new coaching staff comes in, you kind of get a peek or a view of how they view these guys by where they place them on the field and different plays that they call and what things they're having them do. So I'm excited for that because you get another kind of peek into the evaluation process that they're going through with these players.
Again, Jesse Merrick, News 3, Las Vegas, is our guest. Jesse, let me ask you this, and it's going to be, since you were a wide receiver and you played the position, and you talked about at the top of the segment here about the much anticipated Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, and of course, all the history going back to Fresno State and the buddies and their best friends, and all of that is great. But you know, from playing the game, when you get on the field, doesn't matter how much you liked each other and you might have played years ago, you have to build that chemistry in the flow of the game and in the offense. That chemistry overall, you know, that's one of the things that I'm going to look for in camp is just how fast they can get on the same page. For you, what's going to be the early telltale signs that they're either progressing nicely, it's not going to happen overnight, but they're progressing nicely, or maybe they're running into some difficulties?
You know, I mean, the biggest thing, honestly, is just going to be watching their interactions, you know, and seeing what they're doing, you know, on the sidelines. How much is verbal? How much is nonverbal? You know, when you've got that kind of connection with a quarterback, so much of it is honestly nonverbal. You just give them the look, and then they know exactly what, you know, either a person really wants to do or supposed to do in that situation. So I think the more we hear from them, the more they're still working on, you know, continuing and building that, you know, that chemistry. I think the less that we hear verbally from them, I think we'll see more and more like, okay, hey, that's that chemistry coming in. I personally don't think it's really going to take long for them, you know, as they do obviously continue to learn this offense. That's going to add a little wrinkle into it. But you know, when you've got chemistry, you've got chemistry. It can come back. It's like riding a bike, honestly, with a quarterback like that. No matter, you know, I know they haven't done it together in the NFL, but they have worked out together throughout many off seasons. Not for the last couple, just given the situation with COVID and everything like that. But, you know, having that experience with each other, I think, is massive. And we've all seen it, whether it's on social media over the years, all this stuff of Derek Carr and these guys working out in the offseason, always at parks out here in Vegas, putting that work in. I think that's where we're going to see, you know, them kind of develop more of that. And I think, again, that's where it's going to be kind of like riding a bike for these two. Because, look, at the end of the day, like, Derek Carr has had some pretty good weapons to throw to, but nobody like Devontae Adams. And having a guy like that simply helps, you know, take it to that next level where you just have this dude that could do so many different things. And that where I think if we're going to see this offense, you know, kind of unlock itself is the connection that both of them have and how it opens up things for both Waller, Renfro, and all the other guys on the offense as well.
Well, and Jesse, before we let you go, I appreciate your time today. Is the one question I have too, and it kind of went away, and everybody's saying the right things, which you certainly appreciate, which is the Darren Waller situation, the contract he's going to get into camp, as far as we know, right? No indication that he's going to have any issue. They're working on something maybe for the long term. Has that been talked about internally? Do you hear any buzz about it, or is it pretty much just status quo and they're ready to go and he's ready to play football?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's not that big of a deal. It's not a massive talking point. I think simply because of who it is, that it's Darren Waller. I mean, he's such a chill guy. Obviously, look, he wants to get paid. We all know that. Who wouldn't want to? But I think he's just one of those guys where he's like, every time that question does come up, he's kind of like, hey, look, it'll happen when it happens. I'm just in here working, get the canned answer that you hear from a lot of guys. But I think when you look at this team specifically with Waller, with Renfro, with Devontae, those are all like kind of non-ego guys. And I think for that matter alone, I don't think any of this contract stuff, is going to become an issue with Waller, because I think he's confident that it's going to happen. He's seen it happen with the guys before him. And I think now, again, it is just a matter of time. The big question is just going to be, what is that number going to be? Because you see money thrown around to some of these tight ends around the league. I see a lot of people pointing out the number that David Njoku got, and they're saying, man, if he gets that, what's Waller going to get? So that obviously complicates things. But I think, again, you see a situation where guys, take a little less both on the money side and also on the stat side for what this offense, what this could be for them going forward. We've seen the way that they've structured these contracts. The Raiders are kind of giving themselves that 3-year window to really go and get it. And I think that's probably what we'll see with this Darren Waller contract whenever it does come. But again, I don't think that's something that he's super worried about, that the team is really, letting become any sort of issue. I think, again, more so just like, hey, it's going to come when it does. And they got, I believe, $21 million to work with right now on the cap.
21.
So we'll see if something does happen within the next week or so here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And by the way, with you guys positioned so far from the team out on the field, doesn't News 3 have a drone, or they won't let you do the drone, or you got to get the drone out there, right?
We do have a helicopter. Funny story. We actually, our morning news crew thought it would be a great idea to send a helicopter out to training camp one day without asking us.
Oh.
And obviously that's a big no-no, because you guys know this. I don't know if more than many of the viewers do. There's times where you can and cannot shoot practice. And John Gruden obviously wasn't happy. Will Kiss, the Raiders PR guy, was not happy. He's looking over at us like, what the is going on? Why is your helicopter here? And so we're on the phone with our station like, what are you guys doing down here? You got to get this thing out of here. Safe to say, no drones, no helicopters. Otherwise, we may be barred from going to practice. I don't want to take that chance.
Yeah, and the big 3 on the side you can't deny. Oh, that's not ours. That's not ours.
Well, it's Channel 8, it's Channel 13. No, they know whose it is.
Oh, too funny. Jesse, as always, man, we appreciate it. We'll catch up with you maybe towards the middle or end of camp to get your impressions, but we certainly appreciate you spending time with us here today.
Hey, for sure, guys. Always love hopping on with you. I'm looking forward to it.